Greetings. The Adrian Dominican Sisters welcome you to a presentation of A Sister Story. I am Sister Peg O'Flynn, and today I have the privilege of having a conversation with our Sister Catherine Ahern. Some of you may know her as Sister Jane Patrice. That's before she went back to her baptismal name. All right, so good morning, Catherine. And we are delighted to be able to have this chat with you and hear about your story, your long story, in 30 minutes. That's a challenge. So you pick out the special parts that you want to share with us. So thank you for being with us. And maybe we can start at the beginning, which is where you were born, where you grew up, and then just go from there. And I'll at times interrupt and just want some more information on whatever we're talking about. Okay?
All right. That's fine with me.
The floor is all yours, so you go.
Okay. I'm from a family of 8 children, 4 boys and 4 girls. My mother had her babies 2 by 2. 2 boys, 2 girls, 2 boys, right down the line. And my sister Marie died when she was 11. So that threw the number off. So I become the middle child.
What happened to Marie? What happened to Marie?
The after effect of an appendectomy.
Oh.
She got an infection after the surgery. And no penicillin in 1933.
Oh, my gosh. That's so tragic for your family.
Oh, it was. It set a tone.
Mm-hmm.
Because every time we did anything wrong, it was, if Marie were around, you wouldn't do that.
Oh, gosh.
So we grew up with that motto. Well, anyhow, I grew up with the family of 7, and we were at St. Justin Martyr Parish, run by the Mercy Nuns.
Where? In Chicago?
In Chicago, South Side. And I went to Mercy High School, again, Mercy Sisters. I've met Father Kennelly of happy memory. And I had an interview with him. Marie Wiedner took me by the hand to meet him. He ended up being a relative of my dad's on the both fathers' sides. And he had me enter the Adrian Dominicans.
Well, even before that, let's not get you in the convent yet. Tell us a little bit what family life was like.
Oh, we had a wonderful family. I grew up during the Depression. And things were tight. My dad always worked, and he provided meals for relatives who were out of work, like Ford Motor people. They were out of work during the Depression.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, after the war, or during the war, everybody was full-time work. So we went through the Depression, and I graduated from grade school, and I got a job when I was 14 at Mandel's department store.
14
during the war. They were anxious to get these little Catholic girls from the Catholic high schools, They were good workers. So I worked there 4 years, paid my tuition all through, 50 cents an hour. But I did pay my tuition. The last year I worked at detasseling corn in El Paso, Illinois. I earned $70 in 10 days, and that was my tuition for the year.
Oh, my.
So I marched right over to Mercy and paid my tuition. Well, I learned a lot. I learned a lot working as a little high school girl.
Mm-hmm.
Then after high school, I was a secretary at Armour Meatpacking Company.
So you didn't enter right after high school?
No, I worked there for 2 years.
Okay.
And I worked as a secretary in the sales department. And I had charge of all the salesmen around northern Indiana, southern Michigan, repped around to Elgin, Illinois. There were 12 men, and I was in charge of them. And I'm 18. Got it? The boss is on the road all the time. So one time, my first boss said to me, "Where is he?" And I said, "I have no idea." He said, sit him down. I mean, 18, sit the boss down and have him write out his itinerary for the week. Each week, have him do that because we want to get a hold of him. In the meantime, he opens up himself a cold storage in Valparaiso, Indiana. And he's doing his own cold storage of meat. And this guy's a crook.
Oh, dear. Can I just interrupt for a minute, Catherine? We're losing you from your nose down. Can you? There, that's perfect.
Oh, that's okay. I was leaning it too much into the camera.
Yeah, that's perfect. Now, we want to see your lovely face, all of it. Okay, thank you. You may go on.
Okay,
so this crook.
He's a crook, and he has his own little business going on out of his cold storage. So I have to report him now.
You're 18, okay.
I'm 18. This was a terrible task for me.
Yes.
But I managed to do it. Well, that gets back to me entering the convent with all this experience. And I entered in on a Friday. Sunday morning, I'm on an airplane with Mother Gerald Berry to Chicago. I'm going to witness a fourth grade by Sally Kavanaugh. She's the teacher. She's just made profession. I'm observing her teaching, and I'm going to go up to Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan.
Oh, my.
To teach for the whole year. My crowd enters in February, 49 of us. They don't know I'm up in Sault Ste. Marie. I come back in June. They think I'm a new postulant. And
you got sent out because you had such experience before you came.
Oh, yeah. I had a lot of experience.
Yes, so. I'll say.
Eventually, I get out to California. Richard Clare is my superior, and she insists I teach clothing construction to sophomore girls. She'd come and teach my spelling lessons, my fourth grade spelling lessons, and I'd go up to the library to teach clothing construction. Well, I put on a fabulous fashion show that year. So it's just, my home ec background permeates my life.
I see.
So I switched from history to home ec and was out to Oakland, California for my summer school. We're living in classrooms of 30 sisters on army cots.
Wow.
And I do my chemistry and my organic chemistry there. And I'm into the sciences now. And I love the sciences. I loved history. So I had mixed feelings about going into home ec, but I was a perfect candidate for it. I sewed all my life and got into the novitiate and got to be a very good friend of Sister Frederica.
Oh, yes.
I made habits for a lot of Dominican priests. I made rabbis, little things around the neck of the priests, Roman collars,
Right.
And Sister Marie Goretti and I were the partners. We did all of Mother Gerald's benefits for that Christmas. I taught her how to wrap a package, and she still uses my techniques on how to wrap a package.
Is she in your crowd, Maria Goretti?
Crowd right ahead of me.
Immediately
ahead.
Okay.
And we stayed friends all our life.
She's a special woman, yes. Uh-huh.
Oh, yes, she is. She had two priest brothers. I had two priest brothers. And so we were good companions to each other during this block of time. I had 4 brothers that studied at Quigley. 4 graduated. The only four in the family, all boys, studied the priesthood at Quigley in Chicago.
Oh, my.
So that was kind of a record for our family.
I'll say.
And my oldest brother, John, he became a priest in 49. My other priest became a priest in 58. Jane Ahern. And funny thing, when I was at Armour's, when I was leaving Armour's meatpacking company, I was called to the office of John Gorman. So I sat myself down. First, I wanted to know if he wanted to interview me. And he said, yes, come in, sit down. I have a few questions for you. What is it you need a raise? What is it you want a promotion? What is it that you would like? I said, well, I'm leaving the job, and I'm going off to college. He said, what college are you going to? I said, Siena Heights College in Adrian, Michigan. He said, you wouldn't be entering the convent, would you? I said, indeed, I am.
Good for you. Mm-hmm.
So as time went on, his son gets ordained the same class as my brother, Gene. So I went over to him and introduced myself. I'm in full habit now. That's 1958.
Yeah.
Full habit. And I introduced myself. The man had had a stroke and he couldn't see. So I reached out and touched his jacket, and he reached out and touched the habit. And he said, oh, I remember you very well. Well, his son was Larry Gorman of happy memory, mm-hmm. and John Gorman, Bishop John Gorman, his son. I tell the story to John about my contact with his dad, and he just thought it was a great story. But anyhow,
that's nice.
That was a connection. I have had a lot of connections in my life. I went up to Sault Ste. Marie to teach, and the first priest coming over to visit was a classmate of one of my brothers at Quigley, and he had transferred to the Superior Diocese. Wow. Charlie Carmody. Well, every Friday night he'd come over with a bag of peanuts, circus peanuts, and he'd sit around and we'd eat the peanuts. He's funny guy. He was a real comedian, and he entertained us.
So now, you were in Sault Ste. Marie about just a year, right?
A whole year, the postulant year.
Right.
And then I came back after that to Adrian for my novitiate. Well, get back to Larry Gorman and John Gorman. They became very good friends of mine through the years. And I tell the story to John about his dad, and he loves the story about his dad. They're a great family. Mm-hmm. Well, let's linger on now to my novitiate year. I spent the year making habits for the priests and the nuns and our crowd who needed help making their habits.
Then all of us knew how to sew.
Oh, I know that very well, especially the headpieces. I was a pro at those. I'd make them by the dozen. The headgear.
Yeah.
The gimps. So I went to my first assignment after profession was St. Dominic's in Detroit with Rose Michaeline, Helen Walsh.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Lovely yes. Lady. Then I went from there to Santa Cruz, California. From there, I went to Homewood, Illinois for 5 years. And I was with 16 sisters there. Then from there, I went to the Mount St. After 10 years, I finally got my first degree. And the day I got the degree, I went to Mount St. Mary Academy. And tell me I have the highest devotion to Academy sisters that taught in that institution. That was a big job. I was 30 years old, in charge of the food service, teaching catechism 6:30 on Sunday morning in Elburn, Illinois, with Celeste Mary of Burke.
Yeah.
And come back, took charge of the girls all day and Sunday. You know, this never ended. The jobs those sisters had with the girls all the time.
Right.
I was in charge of the food service. This is the year 1960. We become a province.
Right.
In the household is Kevin Campbell. She's our first Chicago provincial. Rita Marie is there. Devota is there. They've taken over the whole wing at the Mount. Puts my principal and superior, Agnes Patrice, into a dormitory in the old building. So she has given up her bedroom and living in a dormitory. She could never start prayer in the morning. It had to be Kevin, Devota, Rita Marie, down the line of officers before Agnes could start prayer.
That's the way we lived in those days.
Oh, I tell you.
Right.
So that was an experience. Well, I become Kevin's driver. So every night we'd go out looking at property to bury medals for the new St. Dominic's College, which we wined and dined the owner of the property that we eventually bought. So he'd be over to the academy for dinner about 3 nights a week until Kevin convinced him to sell the property, which ended up to be right on the Fox River.
Right.
It was a magnificent piece of property. Well, I always felt like we're burying the medals. And I'm thinking, hey, I belong to this group, we're burying the medals to open a new college. Well, anyhow, it did happen, and it lasted maybe 12 years.
Right, that didn't hang in there.
No, it didn't. And then I was at Regina High School when it was sold, and we went out there to lay claim to a lot of their science lab materials.
So you were in St. Charles about a year, and then where were you missioned off to?
I went to my very favorite place, was St. Alphonsus in Dearborn.
Yes, very nice.
I lived with 39 people there.
That's right.
39.
It was a big place.
It was a big place, grade school and high school combined.
And a community that was very hospitable, always.
Oh, my gosh.
Yes.
And I'll tell you, I'd never been in contact with Polish community. I love the Polish kids. They had support, the family supported them, and they were very, very generous people. And we had a Bishop Zaleski. He was there. Well, these were my jobs there. I was the procurator. I was the collector of tuition. I taught high school religion at night. And we were busy all the time. But the joy of that whole place was I lived with 5 artists. We're talking about Nancy Turner.
Okay.
Alice Ann Van Aker.
Yeah.
Therese Ann, who was our science teacher.
Right.
But she was very artistic.
Mm-hmm.
Pauline Oppenheimer. Pauline. She's an artist. She's an Adrian.
Opliger?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pauline. She was there. Myself, I got very artistic living with them. And this was an era where Thanksgiving weekend, we spent making benefactors' gifts. They could have been just a beautiful greeting card. It would be silk screened.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It would be a candle, homemade candle with a lot of decorations on it. Oh, it was a wonderful, wonderful experience living with artists. I learned a lot from them.
And living in a large community is a gift too. It
is. Yeah. I learned so much from those sisters, and they were so good to me.
What did they learn from you, do you think?
Well, they learned I was very patient,
mm-hmm.
and I was a good listener. Mm-hmm. One sister said, "Kay, you have the gift of listening," and I thought that was a nice thing.
Yes. Yes.
Because I was a little kid growing up, so I was a listener for the younger kids and the older kids.
Right.
They'd all come to me with their problems.
Very good. That's neat. Uh-huh.
Yeah, and let's see what else. I left there I was getting my degree from Michigan State in home ec education.
Okay.
With a lot of counseling classes too. So I went to Lansing, Michigan with Joan Delaplane as my superior.
Oh my, how wonderful.
And we had 27 sisters there, of which 11 of us taught in the high school. And we taught with Christian brothers, 11 Christian brothers, and 22 lay people. They were perfectly balanced. And I taught home ec there and language arts and some other class, maybe a history class. I loved history. Then from there, I went to Regina High School in Wilmette. And I taught there with 49.
That's right.
And my partner in crime was Jane Patrice. She and I were the bursars.
Okay.
Not the bursars, the procurators.
Mm-hmm.
And we did a fantastic job there. We had a lady cook, but we did rotate on Thursday nights to do the supper. So right. I was there and I taught home ec. We put on some wonderful fashion shows. I in all the schools I was in, I did all the costuming for the plays.
Wow.
At the Mount, we did HMS Pinafore, and we got the Navy from Great Lakes giving us the uniforms for that show.
Oh my, how wonderful.
Well, they were delivered, and of course the girls are hanging out in the hall looking at the Navy men roaming the halls, and they're looking at the girls. That was a nice experience. Then at St. Al's, we put on a lot of great shows. We put on Oklahoma, again, HMS Pinafore, My Fair Lady. No, that was at Regina. Well, we put on some great productions in the various schools, and I worked with, Patrick Mary was her name. She was Claire. No, Patrick Claire. That was Mary Nugent. She recently died.
Right.
She was our drama teacher. And Diane Weifenbach.
Right. So then I noticed that after you left Regina, what's this University of Notre Dame?
Oh, I was sent by Mary Therese McCarthy.
Okay.
She gave me a letter. It arrived on my birthday, March 27th. And she wanted me to take a pastoral theology class. Well, she had interviewed me at Regina at some point, and I guess she got wind of it that I didn't have any, theology back. So she invited me to go there. So I did, and I ran into Jack Egan, Monsignor John Egan. Mm-hmm. He was my 8th grade teacher. Well, he was just ordained. He came to St. Justin's, and he taught us religion in the 8th grade. Mm-hmm. At that year, he started the Young Christian movement, the Young Student movement, and he based everything. He'd come over to my mother's house, and he would have these little groups, 12 people, always 12. He modeled that after the apostles, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. So he was a big influence in my life. So he's at Notre Dame. And he introduces me to, again, connections.
Yes.
If I didn't have Jack Egan, I probably never would have gotten into Notre Dame. He had a big influence on me.
Very good. So you were there for a year?
A year, and I got my master's in pastoral theology.
Wow.
And then I was home with my mother after that year. She had had a stroke, and she was living in a community that was changing. And she was the last white lady on the block.
Okay.
And a lot of things were happening to the little white ladies.
Right.
So I moved in with her, and eventually we sold the house. I went around to several realtors to get a listing. In those days, they didn't have multiple listings. Every realtor was the lister, only one at a time. Well, I went around the whole area to list my mother's name for that house. Eventually, we sold it. She had it on sale all the years I was at Notre Dame. I'd come home every weekend and see her because I was very concerned about her.
Oh,
so we moved her to LaGrange, and a friend of my brother's, who was principal at Lindblom High School at the time, he said, "Kay, you're going to go crazy this summer taking care of your mother without an outlet." He said, "Why don't you come down and into the Chicago Public School? We'll see if we can match you up as a substitute. You wouldn't be teaching every day, but every other day maybe." So I did that, and I went to the Cook County Juvenile Detention Center.
You were there a long time.
I was there 30 years.
Yes.
Yeah. And I took care of my mother all that time. Moved her out of Chicago into LaGrange apartment. Yeah. And then eventually we bought a little house. And I lived with her for about 10 years. And then she passed away. And I was going to quit the job right there. I'd only worked there like 10 years. And the principal, Mr. Hahn was his name, he was very instrumental in the sisters at Our Lady of the Immaculate Heart of Mary School in Westchester.
Okay.
And he was on the board. He said, "Kay," he says, "stay here." He used to call me Kay. So, "Stay here," he said. We'll find you some good work here." So I stayed on for the 30 years. But, there, I not only was the teacher, but I had those listening ears with these kids who had multiple problems. They're all wards of the court.
Wow. Did they live there? Residential center?
There. Yeah, it was a detention center. Mm-hmm. And their court was within the same building. So they would be there until their court was processed, and they would either go out to another facility or go home and probably be rearrested, or they'd become of age and they had committed murder. They'd go to the jail.
So have you kept in with any of them?
I kept in touch with one girl.
Okay.
She ended up going to a correctional facility in Texas. And I taught her how to quilt. Now she's teaching the kids, her contemporaries, how to quilt in a jail out in
Wonderful.
Texas.
Wonderful.
So,
and you mentioned before we were recording this that the quilt behind you made.
Yeah. Yes.
Beautiful.
Yes. Now, am I being photographed with you?
Yes, yes.
Oh, okay. Because I see my picture above, and I see you full blown.
No, I have both of us full blown.
Oh, okay.
So you're being recorded for full blown. But now we're almost at the end, and that you certainly have and continue to have a full life. You're very engaged in whatever.
I'm very engaged.
Yes.
Once my mother died, I took 3 classes in the local public school. One was caning chairs. Another one was rose mauling, which is a Norwegian art thing on wood. Beautiful, beautiful pieces. And then I took my first quilt class.
Wonderful.
Well, within that year of taking quilt classes, the girl who was in charge, she said, "Would you mind teaching the class downtown in one of the fabric shops?" I said, "I'd be happy to." So I went down there and taught a few classes. Then Moraine Valley called me, said, "Would you like to come out here and teach quilting on Saturday mornings?" So I did that. but it also belonged to a guild. We started, I was the 37th member. And when I left that group, we were 225 members.
Wow.
So I really got to know them.
And I think lots of people certainly have gotten to know you and how you're very easy to be with. You're very pleasant. And all of these experiences have kept you young. At heart.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm from a big family. I had 29 nieces and nephews on the first round. Then I've had a lot of greats, nieces and nephews on the next round. And now I have like 250 relatives on the third or fourth round of generations.
So many people that you have come in contact with, particularly your family, have truly inspired you. And as you say, it all began back in your family.
My mother was a sower. She could make anything by just looking at it. She would size it up. All she'd need is the width of your shoulders, and she could make you anything.
I bet you could do the same thing.
I could too.
Answer this question for me. I mean, I think I kind of know the answer, but what brings joy at this time of your life, joy to your heart?
Well, I do make, in the cycle of the virus we've had, I made 35 quilts.
Oh, my.
Now I'm celebrating my 90th birthday. Finally, after 2 years of waiting, I'm finally getting my party. So I'm going to raffle off quilts, not 35 of them, maybe 7. Baby quilts and wedding quilts and all kinds of quilts. And I'm going to donate that money to the community. Well, this week, I'll tell you, I'll be real honest with you, was the joy of my whole life. Getting the book. Seeds of Change. And also the donation book.
From the development office.
From the development office. And I love Amy. I made her a quilt. She put it on one of her advertising booklets.
Nice. Amy.
So it's Amy.
Amy Palmer. Yeah.
So I called her up and told her what a beautiful magazine this was. And I also called up Barbara Kelly, because she had a lot to do with the writings in that magazine.
Right, she did. She's a very good writer. And then we have Mary Lou Putro, who just authored the book.
Okay, now before we leave, I want to give my comment on my quote. This is a quote.
Your favorite quote?
My favorite quote. I learned it in 7th grade. Mercy none. We always had to memorize a passage each week in her class, and this was mine. The sower went out to sow his seed. Now, the seed is important to me because during the war, I was the first one. I was 11 years old. I was the first one on the block to start a victory garden.
Really?
Really. In my 8th grade, in my senior year, I went down to El Paso, Illinois to detassel corn, paid my senior year tuition. And ever since then, wherever I went, I always had a garden with the kids. So I always felt that was and then when this book comes out, Seeds of Change. Oh, I thought that's going to be my quotation. The sower went out to sow his seed, and some fell here and there, So that's my quote.
And so this is, now this book, there was a book before this one, so you've lived through a couple of those books.
Oh, yeah, with the field of corn.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, is there one thing, we have to close, but I mean, we could just go on and on with you. You're a delight to interview. Is there something you wish I had asked? Because people are probably wondering how, you said a quote. And I gave you a whole list of things which we never get to. But is there something you'd like to add or end with that I didn't ask you?
Well, I'm so glad I did did the tasks I was asked to do through the years,
yes,
but also to let other people lead me. Like Marie Weidner, she led me to meet Father Kennelly.
yes,
And that was a connection because he was connected with my dad.
Yeah.
My dad was from Ireland. He missed the Titanic. He got on the next boat. You know, my dad had one job all his life. He worked at a freight office. And at the tender age of 65, he becomes in charge of the whole freight office. He had a 6th grade education. He was born without a father. His father died before he was born. His mother remarried. My dad went to 6th grade. She was a teacher. She had 5 more kids. They all became teachers.
Wow.
And my dad came to America with a 6th grade education. And he had 2 sons, priests. He had a PhD in education from Loyola. My sister had 9 kids. 2 are medical doctors, and 2 nurses, and a lot of accountants. And then I had another brother with 6, another brother with 9, with 8, 7 sons, and a daughter.
Wow.
All in the field of big jobs. Of my family, 26, 25 have graduated from the University of Illinois. I mean, like my mother would graduate from grade school when she's 12.
Okay, well, we could do that on another recording. The family dynasty. Now we're at a very interesting time in our congregation with with our chapter that's upcoming, and are coming together this weekend. And have you enjoyed the circles, the prayer group? Yeah,
I have. And you know what? It's delightful to see the people at the mission groups discuss their circles.
Yeah.
They were in.
Yeah.
And how sharing and resharing.
Right. Right.
And this goes on and on.
So where do you think, looking at our identity and our future, do you have a closing brief thought?
Well, I ask the Holy Spirit every day to bless the people in charge and who will be in charge.
Right.
That they will be given the grace of the office. We always had the grace of the office.
Right.
We've been blessed through the years, from 1950 till now.
Right.
And all these changes in the book, we went through a lot. And I hope it continues with the young sisters under 70, because that's where it's at.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's definitely our future. But anyway, you are a significant part of our present, our past, and our future because of your involvement in the mission group and the circles and in life. And you dearly love the communities that you have been a part of, that you helped form and they helped form you. So this has been a delight in your 90 years that you're so pleasant and you're so articulate, and you have been engaged in life and touched many lives. And know that by sharing your story, you're touching other lives, because many of us did not know all those things about you. And be sure you let your family know. They can see this. It might not get out for a couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
They can just go to YouTube and say Adrian Dominican Sisters and put your name in, and your video will be there.
Oh, isn't it delightful?
It would be nice to mention the names, but it's too much.
I'd like to mention one name, because she mentioned my name when she had her interview, and that would be Mary Jane Clark.
Oh, yes.
Now, she did an interview and she mentioned my name because I was teaching 3rd grade. She was there. And for confirmation, she took Patrice for her middle name. So she was Mary Jane Patrice Clark.
Right. Okay.
She has my name as part of her name.
Nice.
And I just want to pay tribute to her.
Thank you. That'll mean a lot. And you got your name, Jane Patrice, from your mom and dad. He was
No doubt.
Patrick, right?
Oh,
right.
Yeah, and a brother and a sister.
Right. Good. Well, thank you, Catherine. I guess they call you Kay, don't they? Kay Ahern. Yeah. Thank you ever so much for your willingness to do this. I've never had anyone who I asked and immediately said yes.
Well, I appreciate your offer.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. And the congregation is delighted and better for your presence among us and your years of service. So continue that way.
Well, there are a lot of quilts floating around, Adrian, by me.
Oh, good. I'll have to check on some when I go over there. So God bless you.
The one in Madden Hall and 2 over at Maria.
Okay.
One is in that community room in the basement, and one is with the Alzheimer's group. And that doesn't show up at all because it's hidden in the basement. And
okay. I'll have to get over there and see that. All right. God bless you. Thank you ever so much. And I'll see you in a few days on this chapter, the whole congregation assembly.
Well, thank you so much, Peg. You do a great job.
You're very welcome. I enjoy it. I'm gifted listening to all of you. All right. Take care.